Imagine if I told you that the single most dangerous weapon you carry with you every day isn't a knife, isn't a gun, and isn't even something you can see. It's sitting right there in your mouth, and you've probably used it to destroy relationships, ruin opportunities, and sabotage your own success without even realizing it. What am I talking about? Your tongue, your words, your speech. 2,500 years ago, a Chinese philosopher named Confucius understood something that most people today still haven't figured out. He knew that mastering your tongue, controlling your speech, and choosing your words wisely wasn't just about being polite or well-mannered. It was about wielding one of the most powerful forces in human existence. It was about shaping reality itself. But here's what's fascinating. Confucius didn't just tell people to think before you speak, like your grandmother might have. He developed an entire philosophy around the power of words that was so profound, so transformative, that it shaped Chinese culture for millennia and continues to influence millions of people today. And when you understand what he really meant about mastering your tongue, you'll never look at communication the same way again. The question isn't whether your words have power. The question is whether you're going to control that power or whether it's going to control you. Because every single day, with every conversation, every text message, every casual comment, you're either building your life up or tearing it down. You're either creating opportunities or destroying them. You're either becoming the person you want to be or you're sabotaging your own potential. So why did Confucius place such enormous emphasis on controlling speech? What did he understand about the relationship between words and wisdom that we've forgotten? And more importantly, how can his ancient insights help you navigate the modern world where a single misplaced word can go viral and destroy a career in hours? Let me start with a story that perfectly illustrates what Confucius meant. There was once a student who came to Confucius and said, "Master, I want to be known for my intelligence and wit. I want people to admire my clever words and quick responses." Confucius looked at him and said something that changed everything. "The gentleman is slow to speak and quick to act." Just 7 words, but they contained a universe of wisdom about why mastering your tongue is the key to mastering your life. You see, most people think that being articulate means being fast with words. We admire the quick comeback, the witty retort, the person who always has something to say. But Confucius understood something deeper. He knew that true wisdom isn't about having something to say in every situation. It's about knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. It's about understanding that every word you speak either adds value to the world or takes it away. Think about the most respected people you know. Are they the ones who talk the most? Are they the ones with the quickest comebacks or the loudest voices? Probably not. The people we truly respect, the ones we turn to for advice and guidance, are usually the ones who choose their words carefully. They're the ones who listen more than they speak. They're the ones who, when they do speak, make every word count. Confucius called this concept rectification of names, and it's one of the most misunderstood ideas in his entire philosophy. Most people think it's just about using words correctly or being precise with language. But it goes much deeper than that. Confucius believed that when we use words carelessly, when we speak without thinking, when we let our tongues run wild, we're not just being imprecise. We're actually distorting reality itself. Here's what he meant. When you call someone your friend but you gossip about them behind their back, you're not just being hypocritical. You're corrupting the very meaning of friendship. When you say you love someone, but your actions show indifference, you're not just being inconsistent. You're weakening the power of love itself. When politicians promise change but deliver more of the same, they're not just breaking promises. They're making the concept of political promises meaningless. This is why Confucius said, if names are not correct, language is not in accordance with the truth of things. If language is not in accordance with the truth of things, affairs cannot be carried on successfully. In other words, when we let our words become disconnected from reality, when we speak carelessly or dishonestly, we're not just hurting ourselves. We're contributing to the breakdown of society itself. But let's bring this down to a personal level. How many times have you said, "I'm fine," when you weren't fine? How many times have you agreed to something you didn't really want to do? How many times have you complimented someone you didn't really admire, or criticized someone without understanding their situation? Each time you do this, you're training yourself to disconnect your words from your truth. You're weakening your own integrity, your own authenticity, your own power. Confucius understood that the person who masters their tongue isn't just a better communicator. They're a more authentic person. They're someone whose words can be trusted, whose promises mean something, whose advice is worth seeking. In a world full of noise, they become signal. In a world full of empty words, they become substance. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. This sounds great in theory, but what about the real world? What about when someone insults me? What about when I need to defend myself? What about when staying silent feels like weakness? These are valid questions, and Confucius had answers for them too. One of his students once asked him, "What would you do if someone spoke badly of you?" Confucius replied, "If what they say is true, I would thank them for helping me see my faults. If what they say is false, I would ignore it, for the truth will reveal itself in time." This wasn't passivity. This was power. The power that comes from not being controlled by other people's words, from not being triggered into reactive speech. Think about the last time someone said something that really bothered you. What was your first instinct? Probably to defend yourself, to explain, to correct them, to prove them wrong. But what if, instead of immediately reacting, you paused? What if you took a breath and asked yourself, is there any truth in what they're saying? And if not, why do I need to convince them otherwise? This is what Confucius meant when he talked about mastering your tongue. It's not about being passive or weak. It's about being so secure in yourself, so clear about your values and your truth, that you don't need to prove anything to anyone through your words. You let your actions speak for you. But here's where it gets really interesting. Confucius didn't just talk about controlling reactive speech. He also understood the incredible power of intentional speech. He knew that when you do choose to speak, when you select your words carefully and speak from a place of wisdom rather than emotion, your words carry enormous weight. The superior man is modest in his speech, but exceeds in his actions, he said. Notice that he didn't say the superior man doesn't speak. He said the superior man is modest in his speech. There's a big difference. Being modest in speech means choosing quality over quantity. It means speaking with purpose, rather than just to fill silence. It means understanding that silence itself can be a form of communication. In our modern world, we've forgotten the power of silence. We live in a culture that equates speaking with strength, noise with importance, constant communication with connection. But Confucius knew better. He understood that silence isn't empty space to be filled. It's fertile ground where wisdom can grow. It's the pause that gives weight to words. It's the breath between notes that makes music possible. When you master the art of strategic silence, something amazing happens. People start listening more carefully when you do speak. Your words carry more weight. Your opinions become more valued. You become someone whose thoughts people seek out, rather than someone whose constant chatter people tune out. But Confucius also understood that mastering your tongue isn't just about when to speak and when to stay silent. It's also about how to speak. He had very specific ideas about the kinds of speech that build character and the kinds that destroy it. "Do not impose on others what you do not wish for yourself," he famously said. This golden rule applies perfectly to speech. Before you speak about someone, ask yourself, would I want someone to speak about me this way? Before you share that piece of gossip, ask yourself, would I want my private struggles shared with others? Before you criticize someone's choices, ask yourself, would I want my decisions judged by someone who doesn't know the full story? This isn't just about being nice or polite. It's about understanding that every word you speak is shaping the kind of world you want to live in. When you speak with compassion, you create more compassion in the world. When you speak with wisdom, you contribute to collective wisdom. When you speak with integrity, You strengthen the fabric of trust that holds communities together. Confucius also warned against what he called artful speech. These are words that sound good but lack substance. Words that are designed to impress rather than to express truth. Words that are more about the speaker looking good than about genuinely communicating. Artful speech and an ingratiating manner are rarely signs of goodness, he observed. We see this everywhere today. Politicians who say what people want to hear rather than what they believe. Social media posts crafted to get likes rather than to share genuine thoughts. Conversations where people are just waiting for their turn to talk rather than actually listening. Confucius saw through all of this. He understood that when we prioritize sounding good over being authentic, we're not just being dishonest with others. We're being dishonest with ourselves. This brings us to one of the most profound aspects of Confucius's teaching about speech, the relationship between words and character. He didn't see these as separate things. He understood that how you speak reveals who you are, and more importantly, that how you choose to speak shapes who you become. The gentleman understands what is right. The petty person understands what is profitable, Confucius said. This applies directly to speech. Do you speak because it's right to speak, or because speaking will benefit you in some way? Do you remain silent because silence serves your interests, or because silence is the wise choice? Every time you choose wisdom over cleverness, truth over convenience, compassion over judgment, you're not just making a good choice in that moment. You're training yourself to be the kind of person who naturally makes those choices. You're building character through the conscious control of your tongue. Confucius also understood something that modern psychology has confirmed. Our words don't just reflect our thoughts and feelings, they actually shape them. When you constantly complain, you train your brain to look for things to complain about. When you regularly speak with gratitude, you become more aware of things to be grateful for. When you habitually speak negatively about yourself, you reinforce negative self-beliefs. This is why Confucius placed such emphasis on what he called careful speech. It's not about being fake or suppressing your authentic feelings. It's about being intentional with your words, because you understand that your words are actively creating your reality. Think about how you talk to yourself. Confucius said, "Better a diamond with a flaw than a pebble without." But how often do you focus on your flaws rather than your strengths when you think about yourself? How often do you speak to yourself in ways you would never speak to a friend? The mastery of your tongue begins with mastering your inner dialogue. It starts with becoming aware of the constant stream of words flowing through your mind and taking responsibility for that mental chatter. When you learn to speak to yourself with wisdom and compassion, speaking to others with wisdom and compassion becomes natural. Now let's talk about one of the most challenging aspects of mastering your tongue, dealing with conflict. Confucius lived through a time of great social upheaval and political chaos. He understood that there are times when you must speak up, times when silence would be a betrayal of your values. But he also understood the difference between speaking up and speaking out of anger. When anger rises, think of the consequences, he advised. This doesn't mean you should never express disagreement or never confront wrongdoing. It means you should do so from a place of wisdom rather than emotion. It means choosing words that are designed to solve problems rather than to vent frustration. When someone says something that angers you, you have a choice. You can react immediately, letting your emotions choose your words, or you can respond thoughtfully, letting your wisdom guide your speech. The first approach might feel satisfying in the moment, but it rarely leads to positive outcomes. The second approach requires more self-control, but it's far more likely to actually address the issue and preserve relationships. Confucius also taught about the importance of context in speech. The wise find pleasure in water. The virtuous find pleasure in hills, he said, meaning that different people find wisdom and virtue in different places. Similarly, different situations call for different approaches to speech. What's appropriate in one context might be completely wrong in another. Mastering your tongue means developing the judgment to know when to be direct and when to be subtle, when to be firm and when to be gentle, when to speak publicly and when to address issues privately. It means understanding that effective communication isn't about having one style that you apply to every situation. It's about having a full range of communication tools and the wisdom to know which tool to use when. This is particularly relevant in our digital age, where so much communication happens through text messages, emails, and social media posts. These mediums strip away tone of voice, facial expressions, and body language, making it easy for messages to be misunderstood. Confucius's emphasis on careful, thoughtful speech is more relevant than ever. Before you send that text message in anger, ask yourself, will this message bring me closer to my goal? Or will it just make me feel better temporarily? Before you post that strong opinion on social media, ask yourself, am I contributing something valuable to the conversation, or am I just adding to the noise? Before you forward that gossip or share that rumor, ask yourself, is this true, is it necessary, and is it kind? Confucius also understood the power of speech to heal. To go beyond is as wrong as to fall short, he said, meaning that balance is key in all things, including communication. Sometimes the most healing thing you can say is, I'm sorry. Sometimes it's, I forgive you. Sometimes it's simply, I understand. But these healing words only have power when they come from a genuine place. Empty apologies and shallow forgiveness actually make situations worse, not better. This is why mastering your tongue requires not just controlling what you say, but ensuring that what you say aligns with what you truly think and feel. One of the most beautiful aspects of Confucius's teaching about speech is his understanding of how words can inspire and uplift others. Is it not a pleasure, having learned something, to try it out at due intervals? He asked. This wasn't just about education in the formal sense. It was about sharing wisdom, offering encouragement, and using your words to help others grow. When you speak words of encouragement to someone who's struggling, when you share knowledge that might help someone solve a problem, when you offer perspective that might help someone see their situation differently, you're using your tongue in its highest form. You're not just communicating, you're contributing to human flourishing. But Confucius also warned against the dangers of unsolicited advice and constant instruction. I do not open up the truth to one who is not eager to get knowledge, nor help out any who is not anxious to explain himself, he said. This means that part of mastering your tongue is knowing when people are ready to hear what you have to say and when they're not. The urge to correct others, to share your wisdom, to point out better ways of doing things can be strong. But if you're constantly offering advice that isn't asked for, if you're always correcting others or showing off your knowledge, you're not mastering your tongue. You're being controlled by your ego's need to demonstrate superiority. True mastery means being able to hold your wisdom lightly, sharing it when it's welcome and appropriate, but not needing to prove your intelligence or knowledge to others. It means being content to let others make their own mistakes and learn their own lessons, while being available to help when your help is genuinely wanted. As we near the end of our exploration of Confucius's wisdom about mastering the tongue, it's worth reflecting on how this ancient teaching applies to our modern lives. We live in an age of unprecedented communication. We can instantly share our thoughts with hundreds or thousands of people. We can have real-time conversations with people on the other side of the world. We're exposed to more words, opinions, and information in a single day than people in Confucius's time encountered in months. This incredible power comes with incredible responsibility. Every tweet, every Facebook post, every text message is an opportunity to either contribute something valuable to the world or to add to the noise and negativity. Every conversation is a chance to either strengthen your relationships or damage them. Every word you speak is either building the kind of world you want to live in or undermining it. Confucius believed that individual transformation was the key to social transformation. The man of wisdom is never of two minds. The man of benevolence never worries. The man of courage is never afraid, he said. When you master your tongue, when you speak with wisdom, benevolence, and courage, you're not just improving your own life. You're contributing to the improvement of society as a whole. Imagine what would happen if everyone applied Confucian principles to their speech. Imagine if people paused before reacting in anger, if they chose truth over convenience, if they spoke to build up rather than tear down, if they used their words to heal rather than hurt. The world would be transformed, but transformation begins with the individual. It begins with you making the conscious choice to master your tongue. It begins with you recognizing that your words have power and taking responsibility for how you use that power. It begins with you understanding that every time you speak, you're not just conveying information, you're shaping reality. So what does it look like to actually practice this in your daily life? Start small. Begin by simply noticing your speech patterns. How often do you speak without thinking? How often do you say things you don't really mean? How often do you use words that hurt rather than heal? Next, experiment with strategic silence. Try waiting 3 seconds before responding to something that triggers an emotional reaction. See what happens when you resist the urge to fill every pause in conversation. Notice how people respond when you become a better listener. Practice aligning your words with your values. If you claim to value kindness, make sure your words are kind. If you say you believe in honesty, make sure your words are honest. If you profess to care about others, make sure your words demonstrate that care. Most importantly, remember that mastering your tongue is not about perfection. It's about intention. It's about making conscious choices about how you use one of the most powerful tools you possess. It's about understanding that your words matter, that they have consequences, and that by controlling them, you can control much of what happens in your life. Confucius spent his entire life teaching people how to become better versions of themselves. His insights about speech weren't just philosophical observations. They were practical tools for transformation. Tools that are just as relevant today as they were 2,500 years ago. Your tongue is a fire that can either warm hearts or burn bridges. It's a sword that can either defend the innocent or wound the vulnerable. It's a seed that can either grow gardens of wisdom or forests of confusion. The choice is yours. Master your tongue, and you'll master more than just communication. You'll master yourself. And in a world desperate for authentic voices, for genuine wisdom, for words that heal rather than hurt, that might just be the most important skill you can develop. Remember what Confucius said, "The gentleman is slow to speak and quick to act." In a world of noise, be the signal. In a world of empty words, be the substance. In a world where everyone is talking, be the one worth listening to. That's the power of mastering your tongue. That's the wisdom of Confucius. And that's the key to not just better communication, but a better life.